And this year, it's 2020. So it's a little bit weird, but we're here to talk to some people that know a lot about this region. We're lucky to have them here with us. But before I invite them, because we're always kind of making fun of how 2020 was weird, the original NAFTA agreement was signed in 1994. Now, if you look back to 1994, it was a little bit weirder than maybe even 2020. Major League Baseball had no World Series winner because players were on strike. The Super Bowl champions in the NFL were the Dallas Cowboys. Tanya Harding met Nancy Kerrigan. Michael Jackson married Lisa Marie Presley in 1994. O.J. Simpson rode a white Bronco. The #1 song in October 1994 was Boyz II Men, I'll Make Love to You. #1 movie, and it was Forrest Gump. And the #1 TV show was a little show about nothing that taught us, everybody, that double dipping is bad. So apparently Seinfeld was ahead of its time, especially fast forwarding here to 2020. But I'm very, very, very proud to introduce our panel today to discuss the UMCA and kind of leave what NAFTA in 1994 behind and welcome 2020. So my very first guest that I'm going to introduce, he is Mayor Serge Dedina, and is the mayor of the city of Imperial Beach, a city that I love, going down there as a morning show producer to show the beautiful city that Imperial Beach is. He's also the co-founder and executive director of Wild Coast. Serge received the Surf Industries Environmental Award, San Diego Zoological Society's Conservation Medal, as well as the California Coastal Commission's Coastal Hero Award in recognition for his conservation achievements. He was named a UCSD John Muir Fellow in 2013 and was honored as a 2016 Peter Benchley Hero of the Sea. Serge is an avid surfer, swimmer, and former state of California ocean lifeguard. Serge, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, everybody. And, I really enjoy the getting together. So I think that's what we're all missing, right? The networking, the amazing hive of activity that happens in all of our binational events, right? Where we're the big abrazos, which I guess we can't do anymore. We just do the elbow knocks. But on behalf of the city of Imperial Beach, it's great to be here. So I was asked to talk about two things. First, how we've responded to COVID, but really the context of USMCA and how that positions our, my city and really the entire South Bay to really tap into economic growth potential. And just on a sad note, I got an email from a buddy of mine, or actually the sisters of a friend of mine, who I took my first surf trip to Baja with back in 1978 when I was 14 at Mark Gannerton. He passed away last night. And I was thinking about that. If you grew up on the South Bay, and I did in Imperial Beach, I was crossing the border 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes twice a day, right? Like when there was no borderline. And, it was K-38s, it was Ensenada, it was buying fish tacos and going to the panaderias, but that's such a normal part of growing up in the South Bay. And Tony Escobedo, part of the Escobedo family, actually went to my high school, or he hung out at my high school, and then he became, so that's a really important part of the culture. And back in 1993, I was a state lifeguard. Actually, we had the whole summer closed due to pollution in Imperial Beach, and I spent the summer working with the Surfrider Foundation, activating efforts to get into the NAFTA agreement provisions for sewage treatment and wastewater infrastructure. What, 20 years, more than 25 years later, thanks to people like Paula Avila, so I see on the screen, and the San Diego Chamber of Commerce, and fearless leadership of San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulkner, our entire congressional delegation, and people across the border, a bipartisan committee, we really did work to get the same thing: money for NADBank, money for wastewater infrastructure, money to accompany the things that we need to do for economic development. And as then the chair of the San Diego Borders Committee, I know how important it is to get the enhanced border crossings built quickly, and why that is a triple win, right? Why that improves our quality of life, why that improves the environment by reducing emissions, and then why that getting trucks across and goods across the border helps us make more money and do a lot more business. So with that, one thing that's really important is just talking about how we responded to COVID. We put together a mayor's task force the minute all the lockdown started happening. The business, along with public safety and public health, were the 3 components of that. We still have a business roundtable. Really, we have been focusing relentlessly on supporting our business community, focusing relentlessly on making sure CARES Act money got to our business community, and then focusing relentlessly on making sure that we could work with them on the up and down swings and opening and closing and doing everything we can to get rid of the tramitazos, right? The tramitando that has to be done generally when you're opening and closing, because we don't want our city to be the DMV or the Politburo, right? Like that was really important. I think getting people outside, doing things quickly to respond and adapt and pivot is really important. So let's make a commitment. We all like all the cool stuff we've been doing about getting people outside and moving quickly. Let's get rid of the trámites. Let's get rid of the red tape. Let's get rid of the bureaucracy that it takes to get things done in city. So whether it's USMCA or whatever we do, cities functioning like politburos in the DMV, where it takes years and years to get anything done, hurts business. The more that we can figure out a structure that respects the environment, that respects our communities, but helps us do things more quickly on both sides of the border, the more we can recover economically and the more we can get things done. This thing where we create these superstructures of bureaucracy on the border, on both sides of the border, really hinders our capacity to move forward. So finally, I do want to thank everybody who worked on the USMCA project. It was an inspiring coalition of civic leaders, environmental leaders, the business community, and obviously a bipartisan or nonpartisan coalition of the San Diego Tijuana team. I was really, really impressed and just glad to be part of that. And it was actually pretty brilliant. So all in there, but I think the commitment is that we need to continue to foster these relationships and make USMCA work. And then I think all of us who spend their lives crossing the border know how much we miss it, right? So anyway, I can't wait to get back to, I have an office for Costa Salvaje, Wild Coast in Ensenada. And my best days are waking up early, surfing San Miguel, having some really good food in Ensenada, and then having a great day of meetings. Or alcaldesa en Rosarito también en 38 o lo que sea, no comiendo tacos en Rosarito, no con mis amigos. Entonces saludos a todos los amigos en Baja California ya. Estaremos ya por allá pronto, ¿no? Gracias.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mayor Medina. And before I introduce our other panelists, let me get to some things that we need to do. This is going to be a really interactive thing. One of the things about being virtual is that you guys, the people that are watching us from home or from your offices or wherever you're safely distancing, we really want to hear your questions for our panelists. So go to the SCEDC panel or the portal, the website. You're going to see a button or a little thing that says polls. Go ahead, enter a question there for me. I'm the one that's going to be able to see it. Hopefully we'll be able to get to some good questions regarding the USMCA for our panelists. Now, regarding our panelists, we're going to continue down south. The beauty of this region right here, I'm a bilingual man. Spanish was my first language. So if you do hear some Spanish, I'm going to try to translate as best as I can. If not, I know we have some great community colleges where you guys can become bilingual if you don't know more than English or Spanish or just one language. I fully, wholly think that you should know too. But Araceli Brown Figueredo is an activist, a businesswoman, artist, mother, and woman of great conviction. She also is the mayor of the city of Rosarito. Born in Tijuana, Baja California, Mayor Figueredo has always fought for the rights of the people, a founder of all leftist movements and the transformation of the county for more than 20 years, including the Democratic National Convention and the Morena National Regeneration Movement in the city of Rosarito. Mayor Figueredo has reaffirmed her commitment to work under the guidelines of a human and social government in which the citizen is a central part and development always attentive to the needs for her community and providing privileges to the human part of the government. Alcaldesa Figueredo, bienvenida.
Muchas gracias, gracias.
¿Tiene algo que decir nomás como introducción o si quiere podemos continuar?
Pues agradecer la apertura para estar aquí con ustedes en este foro y esperemos que pronto ya nos permitan pasar a los Estados Unidos para poder restablecer la relación con las ciudades hermanas y para nosotros es muy importante poder recibir el apoyo de ustedes, de nuestras ciudades hermanas y hermanarnos con otras ciudades que quedaron pendientes por ahí antes de que viniera este terrible virus al mundo y pues nos cerraron el paso. No podemos pasar los mexicanos que no somos residentes. Ahorita esperemos que pronto, porque nos cambian las fechas de manera continua. Ahorita todavía no sabemos hasta cuándo vamos a poder cruzar Estados Unidos.
Perfecto, gracias, alcaldesa. And what Mayor Figueredo said, or Mayor Brown said, is that we are still sister cities in a big border region that is currently locked down due to the COVID pandemic. But hopefully soon we will be able to reopen that border and have that international trade, apart from just the economic stimulation, but also just the community feeling of both cities, correct? Perfect.
Muchas gracias.
Moving on to our next panelist, Carlos Javier Castillo is the General Director of Binational and Economic Relations and Cooperation. He holds a bachelor's degree in economics and a master's degree in public policy from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. He also collaborated in the Urban Competitiveness Laboratory of the Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington. He has worked as a consultant for the Inter-American Development Bank, conducting research on public finances and private sector debt in Latin America. Carlos, bienvenido.
Thank you so much, Solomon, for inviting me here. It's an honor to be here representing Minister Ebrard, who I can assure you is deeply interested in empowering the unique binational border communities we have. I'm here. My colleague Roberto Velasco, the Director General of North America, was originally stated to be here. He sends his regards, and he apologizes he couldn't be here because he's dealing with some health issues. But I'm excited to be here in his place and talk about the North America trade and the updated framework of the USMCA. I want to thank the Southern County Economic Development Council for the invitation, and also I'm honored to be sharing this panel with remarkable officials from both sides of the border. I hope this will be a very enriching discussion.
Senor Castillo, thank you so much for joining us as well, and for getting that substitute teacher award today of coming in on such short notice. And last but certainly not least, I'm pleased to welcome Paola Avila, and she is the Vice President of the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce, brings over 20 years of experience in public policy, community outreach, government relations. In her current position, Ms. Avila focuses on advocacy and domestic international public policies that enhance economic prosperity through trade, commerce, and robust international relationships. Ms. Avila is recognized as a leader in the industry, winning multiple awards, including the Latino Leaders Magazine's 2014, San Diego's Most Influential Latinos, and the Girl Scouts San Diego's 2018 Cool Woman Award. That might be the coolest one of all. Ms. Avila, welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to join such an esteemed panel. And I want to thank the South County ADC for putting on this annual economic summit. You know, it's critical because what you're doing here is closing the 2,700-mile gap between us and Washington, D.C., where policy decisions are being made that impact our region. Likewise, we're very far away from Mexico City, almost 1,500 miles. So that is what this discussion will do too. It helps to close that gap. You know, July 1st was the implementation of the USMCA, and we were in the middle, you know, still are, of the pandemic. We didn't get a chance to celebrate this momentous trade agreement that really solidifies our trilateral relationship, which makes certainly for our region, puts us on that global competitor level and keeps us there in a very strong positioning. So it's critical for our region, certainly for trade, but for so many other reasons. This agreement really is about friendship and collaboration. As Mayor Dedina and many others have stated, there's so many other issues that we work on a binational manner, and this agreement helps to facilitate that. So thank you again for the invitation and for providing this platform, and I look forward to this discussion.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Paola. And I'll actually begin with you with one of the questions. And since obviously COVID-19 is on everyone's mind with the news, unfortunately, of POTUS's and FLOTUS having testing positive last night. Everybody's nervous about the pandemic. So what has been the impact on trade and supply chains, and what role can the USMCA play in addressing these issues, Paula?
Yeah, it's, the pandemic highlighted our interdependency as it immediately disrupted supply chains. We saw that despite our deep collaborative ties and these mechanisms for us to work together across borders, we still lacked greater coordination, as the definition of essential activity lacked synchronization. We had to lobby really hard to ensure that operations that were deemed essential in the United States and here in our region were also deemed essential across the border. Because our companies are deeply connected, you can't continue operations on one side of the border without having your supplier or your other locations across the border functioning as well. And that proved, really detrimental. Most companies, they have inventory that lasts them a couple of weeks. And as operations and manufacturers were shut down for longer than that, it posed great problems. They were starting to look at changing suppliers or moving productions out of our region. Adding to that, of course, we saw disruptions in the supply chains that are dependent on products from Asia. And so that, was quite difficult. And I'll mention that this was not just in the manufacturing sector, but if you think about food supply, the imports and exports, the goods movement that depends on this cross-border facilitation, that's a big part of our everyday life here. And so the pandemic really showed how quickly things can be disrupted because of that interdependence, and how we need to work closer together to ensure that there aren't these disruptions that impact not just businesses, but the community at large, our consumers and our healthcare workers and so forth. We continue to see this, unfortunately, with the current travel restrictions that we have at our land ports of entry, which is causing not just prevents tourism, but everyday workers that cross the border. They're susceptible to longer wait times now, secondary inspections, making them late to work, difficulties with getting to school for those that have returned to school. It is a disruption. So that has continued to weigh heavily on our region. But I will say that tourism is critical. It is a traded export. It is a critical pillar for our economy, and that continues to be decimated, as we have seen already. And it's not just limited to the businesses that are along the border. It is region-wide and statewide. So that is something that we really are working towards moving, is lifting those restrictions.
Sounds great, and which actually segues perfectly to another question for our panelists, and this is for Mayor Dedina. Being in a community, a beautiful community located so near the border, and seeing the investment in companies locating here, what is Imperial Beach doing to encourage employees and employers to locate there?
Yeah, so, we're a small city, 4 square miles, 28,000 people. So we don't have a lot of open space. I think what we've encouraged a lot of people to do, and businesses to invest in Imperial Beach. So hotels have been a good deal. We just opened a Hampton Inn. I think what you see in the South County is a lot of underinvestment in hotels. So, for example, our beautiful Pier South Hotel, owned by the Pacifica company, Ashes Ronnie, they've been doing really well with folks who don't want to, frankly, they like our location if they're doing cross-border trade at Otay Mesa, because they can be on the beach and be, just east in Otay Mesa, probably in about 15 minutes. we have a new Hampton Inn. So that's probably a little better. It's a little cheaper. So that's really good. What's been really interesting in terms of investors, we've really attracted a really interesting dynamic group of binational investors. So a lot of folks from Mexico City, a lot of folks from Tijuana. Our new bike shop owners are from Tijuana. So that's really interesting. If you look at who's using the Bayshore Bikeway, we're getting these large groups of Tijuana business folks. I think all the folks from Tijuana know that the cool thing to do on the weekend is ride the Bayshore Bikeway, right? We're like 25 of your best friends and hang out and drink coffee in Imperial Beach at our really cool coffee shop at the end of 13th Street. So I think that's been really interesting. And I've been really struck by the numbers of investors from Tijuana and this binational community of investors who are already own property or are looking to invest in Imperial Beach. And I think you look at that, whether it's East Lake, Bonita, Chula Vista, National City, and Coronado, especially in South San Diego, that dynamic group of investors is really pushing the community forward. I'd also like to shout out just to all the great architects and designers and entrepreneurs in Baja, because I think the bottom-up development, what you see in the Valle, the amazing gastronomic investments you've seen in Rosarito, Tijuana, Ensenada, have really inspired us. So we have our first cool Mike Hess brewery. It's a shipping container. That's the kind of stuff you see in Baja. And so frankly, we're trying to model the kind of investment we get based on what you see, the super cool, hip projects that don't require $10 million to invest in. And I think I just want to throw that out. The more cities can do to make sure that we can invest in projects and have the kind of development that doesn't require you to be a multi-billionaire, that, you know, cash-strapped entrepreneurs can do things quickly, put up shipping containers, do things, micro types of projects, maybe short-term projects, is really good for everybody, right? So I'll just end there, but we're bullish on the border. And finally, USMCA and border investment without infrastructure, wastewater, water, green infrastructure, protecting our open space, the cross-border infrastructure doesn't mean a lot. So we need to all commit to a North American Green New Deal, right? So we have the infrastructure we need to support all that economic development. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Dedina. And from one mayor to the other mayor on our panel, my question for you, Mayor Brown, is how, since we're talking a lot about people, how have the people of Rosarito been doing with the impact? We always hear what happens in San Diego, it happens in Baja. So we really want to know how have they been impacted by COVID-19? Y se lo hago si quiere en español. Como todo lo que pasa aquí en San Diego, pasa en Baja California, como usted dijo, que son dos ciudades hermanas. Me gustaría saber cómo está la gente de Rosarito, cómo está el gobierno de Rosarito y qué están haciendo para mejorar la situación, porque lo más seguro es que aquí en San Diego a lo mejor mucha gente no sabe lo que está pasando en cuestión de la pandemia, y si nos puede dar la información de eso.
Muchas gracias. Pues sí, tuvimos obviamente, como todos los municipios del país y ustedes también allá en Estados Unidos y en el mundo, ¿no? La pandemia pues nos tomó por sorpresa a todos. Pero fíjate que yo me siento muy orgullosa por el trabajo que realizamos en este municipio, que el objetivo de las decisiones que tomé como gobierno era que nuestro municipio fuera un municipio resiliente, con bajos casos de COVID, y así logramos que fuera el municipio de Baja California con menos casos de COVID, menos muertes. Tenemos aproximadamente nada más 18 fallecidos. Creo que en esta semana hubo uno más. Cierra, por favor. Y además de eso, nuestros casos son muy bajos, son más o menos 250 casos los que tuvimos en Rosarito, pero el trabajo que realizamos con la gente, mi equipo de trabajo, que salimos a contener estas necesidades básicas como fue el alimento, el agua potable, el agua de tomar y el agua para bañarse también, para que la gente no tuviera la necesidad de salir de sus casas y se pudiera resguardar, porque realmente cerramos todo en el municipio y solamente dejamos lo esencial en el comercio, lo que estaba permitido por la federación tener abierto. Y eso nos dio un excelente resultado. La gente tuvo obediencia civil y logramos formar este pacto social y somos un municipio turístico que su comercio se ha ido regenerando poco a poco porque fui abriendo por etapas en conjunto con el gobierno del estado y pues en realidad nuestro municipio tiene mucho tiempo que está en verde, pero formamos un pacto con los 5 municipios para podernos nosotros solidarizarnos con los demás municipios si no hubiera una migración interna. O sea, es decir, que por ejemplo Mexicali, que tuvo casos muy altos de COVID, que también Tijuana, Ensenada, no viniera la gente para acá por nosotros tener un municipio pues bastante libre de esta pandemia. Y además de eso, pues también cerramos el municipio, cerramos las entradas a gente que solamente viviera en Rosarito o viniera a algo esencial. Y todas estas medidas pues nos dieron muy buen resultado. Además, con los ahorros económicos que hicimos en este periodo de todas las dependencias, pudimos aportar a los comercios, a los pequeños comercios, un incentivo económico para que fueran abriendo de manera gradual el comercio. Yo no sé cuánto tiempo tengo para hablar, porque yo puedo hablar mucho tiempo aquí sobre el tema.
No, ya sé, estamos bien. Ahora lo que voy a tener que hacer es tratar de traducir eso todo, pero voy a
Todo.
intentar lo mejor que puedo.
Pero me puedo ir por partes y si se te
No
escapa,
se preocupe,
yo te lo recuerdo.
Vesta magia. So basically what the mayor of Rosarito said is that actually a lot of positivity happened in Rosarito. I'm basically trying to translate as best as I could her very nice answer. More or less that she is a proud governor or governance in the sense that they were resilient. They made the proper moves in order to have very low cases to the point where they've only unfortunately had 18 deaths with a possible new one recently. So as high as 19 deaths in an entire city. But they did close everything and slowly, even though they had large case loads in sister cities such as in Tijuana and Mexicali, Rosarito stood firm and now are trying to open slowly but surely, even by giving businesses and small businesses incentives in order to open earlier, which actually segues me to keep on to the USMCA. Senor Castillo, could you actually let us know what, for people that don't know, maybe even like myself, what are the main differences between NAFTA that was signed in 1994 versus the USMCA?
Of course, well, I think for our point of view, while NAFTA was a success for a lot of companies and a lot of consumers, what we think is the main difference is that a lot of sectors and regions in our country were not fully integrated to the prosperity that NAFTA brought. So this was a challenge that we had to address. This agreement reflected one of President López Obrador's main economic priorities, which is to close the country and develop a more inclusive economic growth in regions that still have an important lag in development and welfare. So the USMCA takes some very important steps towards these goals and towards modernizing NAFTA to 21st century needs. First, it includes includes a lot of elements to address the social impact of international trade and explicitly allows new sectors to participate in it, such as indigenous communities, migrants, businesses, with a gender equality perspective. This is very important to us at the at the federal government, in particular the gender equality perspective. This is the first government that has a parity in its sisters, and we have a feminist foreign policy. So this is all tied together to us. The second element that we think is important that was different is it strengthens labor rights and environmental regulations. So through the creation of an effective dispute settlement mechanism and provides clear obligations to combat corruption. So that is also a big difference with NAFTA and another priority of this administration to fight corruption. And finally, which is more on the technical aspects of trade, it increases the North American content. For example, it now has 75% national content instead of 62%, and to be exempted from tariffs. So this is going to provide, an incentive for companies to come and invest in the North American region to meet this threshold and increase trade and investment in the region. So those are some elements we see that is different from the USMCA to NAFTA.
Thank you so much. And one of the things that I'm noticing in this panel is in speaking, in years past when I've moderated any panels, it was very, we spoke about this region being so close to one another. Words like sister cities, words like we're together. Unfortunately, this disease, this virus knows no borders, knows no walls, can beat any walls that are erected. And the words that are coming binationally from our panel, from our sisters and brothers down in Mexico, up here to in San Diego, is that we're working together in order to make this virus not beat us, at least not only physically, but also economically, and by signing this agreement. So I want to thank each and every one of you. Some of you had to step in last minute. Others knew everything was happening and had some issues, but we got it done. Thank you so much for joining us here for the panel on the USMCA, and continue with more for today. Thank you so much, everybody.
For 75 years, the San Diego County Water Authority and its member agencies have worked to ensure we always have enough water by creating a reliable supply for the whole county, so you can be confident that the water will keep flowing, because we keep getting stronger together.